Hello and welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest. Today we're going to be having a guest today, so that means you don't have to sit here and listen to me stammer and go an awful lot. The subject today is going to be what can the West expect if there is a nuclear detonation in Ukraine? Ukraine will have its own set of problems. That's why we're kind of limiting this to the West. We expect any nuclear activity to be localized, so a lot of Ukraine will not be directly affected by a nuclear detonation, so they're going to experience the same things that the West will be, but on a larger scale. So so if you're in Ukraine, watching this, some of this will apply to you as well, but just magnified. But we want to stress that the West will not be immune from the effects of a nuclear detonation, and we're not just talking about fallout. Even though if it's a small weapon, even a dirty bomb, which will release radiation over a small area, but there's still drifting radioactive materials, or if there's a battlefield nuclear weapon, those would be a tactical, and depending on their height, that will depend on how much radioactive fallout is generated. Generally, those are detonated high enough to have a wide field of effect, but it depends on what how big of an effect that they want. If troops are massed all over the place, it's going to be pretty high. If they're concentrated, it's going to be pretty low and generate more fallout. And that fallout, of course, is not going to be limited to Ukraine. It's going to drift over to Russia. It's going to drift over the surrounding area, and eventually it's going to circle way around the globe. Even Fukushima from years ago, that eventually came to the United States, and that was all surface stuff. So just because you're in the West, don't think you're immune. We don't expect much radioactive material, certainly not high levels of radiation, to reach the West from these kind of detonations. Certainly not from a dirty bomb, but even tactical nuclear weapons. You're not going to get too much, but it's going to be enough to be recorded, and certainly going to be enough to make headlines. But a nuclear detonation is going to have other effects. It's going to affect the economy. It's going to affect what people are doing, what's on the store shelves, and things like that. And so our guest here is going to talk specifically about that and what you can do to prepare yourself in the event of a nuclear detonation. We're not saying there's going to be one. What we're saying is that it's always best to be prepared. Like we say, it's better to be prepared, not need it, than need it, not be prepared. So this isn't fear-mongering or anything like that. We're just saying this could possibly happen. The governments are all saying, the odds are it's not going to happen. The odds are very low. But the fact that it's above zero should make you think. And believe me, the governments are not talking just 1 or 2 points above zero. They're talking double digits possibilities. So let's think about what steps you need to take to protect yourself in the event of something happening over in Ukraine, because we've all seen that stuff that happens over in Ukraine affects people in the West. A war happened in Ukraine, gas prices shot up. Now, gas prices were going up before this, but they went up even more after Russia invaded Ukraine. So geopolitics, things that happen in the world, it's a small world after all. So but there is some good news before we get into this, before you start sweating and start thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We need to start building fallout shelters. No, you don't need to start building fallout shelters. Actually, you do need to start building fallout shelters just because it's a good thing to have. But before you start going off and start writing in the comments or anything like this, there is some good news. There's a lot of nuclear rhetoric going. They've kind of dialed back their statements. They made some conciliatory statements. However, which each conciliatory statement they make another threat. So it's kind of give it in one hand, take it away in the other. Certainly, the West has toned down its nuclear warnings. So there's all sorts of things going on. But we think that what's going to happen is that everybody's digging in for the winter. And there's not going to be much progress made during the winter because it's tough to fight in the winter, so everyone's hunkering down, and it's going to maybe be a stalemate for a little while until the spring thaw, and once the ground starts hardening up, and the mud isn't there anymore, then they're going to start making more advances. But for the next few months, we're not expecting to see a whole lot. So, we're going to hold that. Right now, we're at DEFCON 3. We're going to hold at that for just a little while longer. We generally don't make DEFCON changes until the actual update. We don't make DEFCON changes to a lower level until the updates. When we raise it, we'll do it immediately. At lower levels, we tend to do it during the updates. We don't bother you so much with these just updates coming up left and right. So, but we're going to hold off on that a little while. But things are starting to look better. But just because it's better now doesn't mean it's not going to get worse later. Like we said, especially we're seeing things in the spring. And, Russia has talked about, okay, we're really going to start negotiating. We're open to negotiating. That has nothing to do with them getting their tails kicked on the battlefield. But, ha ha ha, sarcasm. But the terms that Russia is holding out are not acceptable to Ukraine. The terms that Ukraine are holding out are not acceptable for Russia. We'll see what happens after, thousands more dead bodies start appearing in body bags in Russia and Ukraine. We'll see if they start changing their minds, or if somebody starts making a thrust. If Ukraine starts taking land, maybe more land back, maybe Russia will reconsider negotiating, or maybe they'll reconsider start, stepping up the nuclear threat. Or maybe if Ukraine starts, seeing Russia making advances again, maybe they'll start thinking about, compromising on their what they're willing to give up. I'm not suggesting that Ukraine should give up anything. For my own personal feeling, this is not a DEFCON Warning System official position. This is just my personal feeling. I don't think Ukraine should give up anything, but that's just me personally. But, there are realities that we have to face in the world. So, okay, that's enough me going off on a slant. I really meant for this to be only like 60 seconds, and here I've gone off for I don't know how long now. But right now, let me introduce to you our guest, Billy Auger. I think I'm pronouncing that name right, who is going to discuss what's going to happen, what the West should expect in the event of a nuclear detonation. Let me preface this by saying that he recorded this in audio. He doesn't have video capability, so we're going to slap up a picture of him so you can see what he looks like and make fun of him and things like that. But so at least it looks professional and presentable. That's why we did it. So, but it is in audio. So if you want to tab out and do other things while you listen to this, I personally will not be insulted. Maybe he will be, but there you are. But anyway, let me now introduce to you Billy Auger.
Hello, welcome to the DEFCON Warning System Digest about how radiological or nuclear weapons being used in Ukraine could affect you and your family. Now, this digest is mainly aimed at our Western followers and readers and listeners, because I've been asked this question a lot by people, and I'm sure it's on your mind as well. Why will it affect me? I don't live in Ukraine. How will it affect me? I'm nowhere near the blast zone. And to answer that, let's break down what would actually happen if a radiological or nuclear weapon was used. Now, I'd just like to start off by saying that I don't think it's very likely that nuclear weapons or radiological weapons are going to be used in Ukraine. But there is that possibility, and we need to take that possibility seriously. That's why we've gone to DEFCON 3, because the situation is fluid. We consider it fluid. Anything could happen. We don't know what way it's going to go. We don't know if radiological or nuclear weapons are going to be used or not. Now, we don't think they're going to be, but there is that chance. So, what would happen if a radiological or nuclear weapon was used? So, you would see some scary headlines in the Western media. You would see pictures of people with horrific injuries if it was a nuclear blast. If it was a radiological attack, you would see pictures of people going through mass decontamination showers. You would see pictures of people with radiation sickness. You would hear experts talking about how the likelihood of cancer is increased by orders of magnitude in the area. How they're having to effect massive civilian evacuations. But most importantly, you would see uncertainty. That's what you would see. You'd sense it as well, because people don't know how NATO would react exactly. NATO hasn't told the public exactly what they're going to do, or what they would do, if a radiological or nuclear device was detonated in Ukraine. And that's a big unknown for everyone. What would NATO do? And investors are going to see that. They're going to see those headlines. They're going to be saying, look, is NATO going to intervene? What are they going to do? What's going to happen? And they're going to think, or they might think, is my investment safe? Am I going to lose my money? Now, we don't know what's going to happen. Predicting the markets, it's pretty difficult to do. But if you have an investment portfolio or something like that, it's probably worthwhile getting it into safer things like gold or energy, but not oil and coal because they fluctuate far too much. And honestly, in this day and age, I wouldn't be investing in those. Or bonds that are guaranteed to mature regardless of everything. Obviously, not Ukrainian or Russian bonds. I would stay away from those. And the UK bond market has been pretty unpredictable recently. But no, just talk to your financial advisors and try and figure out what's the best way to secure your investments. Because, it might happen in the near future. We don't know. Probably won't, but it's worth being protected against these things. And you can't shore up your investments overnight. These things take time. So if you do have investments, now's the time to start protecting them. Even if you haven't got investments, you should be concerned about what happens to the markets. Because if the markets are unstable, it could be harder for you to find a job. Your mortgage rate might go up. You don't know. Your economy could go into recession. And none of those are good for you at home. The biggest thing to watch out for, I think, is possible panic buying. Because when people at home, they read the headlines, they see these horrible pictures, they hear what's happening in Ukraine, they're thinking, is this going to escalate? Is NATO going to get involved? What's going to happen? And there will be a lot of unknowns if a detonation does actually occur. And so people are going to think, well, we need to get some food in. What if people start panic buying? That's the main reason panic buying happens. People worry about panic buying. I know it's ironic. It's like back in the COVID pandemic, in the UK at least, and I think it happened in other places around the world. There was a massive run on toilet paper. You couldn't get toilet paper in the shops. I remember selling toilet paper to my friends for a little bit of money. No, I only made a few quid off it, but anyway. So yeah, stock up on essentials, toilet paper, food. At your next shop, it doesn't mean you have to go and fill up your trolleys. No, it means just at the next shop, maybe buy an extra tin of food, an extra couple of tins. A couple of days worth of food. And if it doesn't get used now, no worries. Tin food lasts for ages. You'll eventually get through it. And also, it's prudent to probably buy some petrol or diesel, or gasoline for you Americans out there. But the big thing about that is you shouldn't store it inside your house. There have been many stories about people, storing petrol inside their house and the place sets on fire. You don't want that. So store it outside if you can, or in a garage or a special storage tank. Also, one of the most important things I think you need to do is you need to be watching the news. You need to be plugged in. Now, I know lots of people don't like staying plugged in. It does take a toll on people. But in uncertain times, like when a radiological device is being used or a nuclear weapon is being used, you need to be watching the news. You need to be on whatever news platform you watch. I recommend Reuters, BBC, Sky News, at least the UK one, not the Australian one. But your favourite broadcaster, just watch them intently. And also stay up to date with the DEFCON Warning System because we'll keep you informed of what's happening as the situation develops. And instead of just looking at the big number each month and thinking, so we're at DEFCON 3, or we're at DEFCON 4 or 5 or 2 or 1, just go onto the forums, read through the reports, get involved in the discussion, see what people are saying about it. But the biggest concern is how NATO would react. Are they going to put troops in Ukraine? I don't think they would, but that's something you have to watch for. Would they blow up the Black Sea Fleet? I don't think so, but again, you need to watch for that if a radiological or nuclear device was used. Then you have to kind of think about how Russia is going to react to the NATO reaction. And you need to watch for a spiraling conflict. Now, that is when, say, a good example is World War One. Archduke Franz Ferdinand gets assassinated, and you've got World War One. You need to watch carefully what's happening, because if a radiological or nuclear weapon was used, lots of people think that it's inevitable that you get a spiraling conflict. So, to go over it one more time, you should stock up now. Maybe get some tinned food at your next shop. Get some toilet paper, maybe. I don't know. Whatever you need, just buy an extra couple of things. Don't go mad, but just stock up a little bit for a couple of days worth of stuff. in case there is panic buying. Maybe stock up on some fuel as long as you can do it safely. Make sure your investments are secure and watch the news like a hawk. You can get news alerts onto your phone, stay up to date on the DEFCON forums, or you can just watch television or read the newspapers. It's up to you, but that is probably one of the most important points, that you watch what's happening and stay updated as much as you can. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at DEFCON WS Alerts, all capitals, or you can visit our website, defconwarningsystem.com, or you can go to our forums, community.defconwarningsystem.com. That's probably the best place to go. Or you can follow us on YouTube or Facebook, but I recommend either Twitter or the forums. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to open a conversation with any of the staff on the forums. And thanks for listening, and I hope to see you around on the forums. Cheerio!